Hey game makers, Nelderson here. I wanted to give a quick update on some of the things that I've changed over the past couple weeks. It's been a little while since I've come out with a video, and I think it's time that we get the progress rolling again. Alright, so with that, there's a few things that I did change to the system to make it a little bit more, things that were on my backlog. You can go into my issues and see exactly what I've closed out and why I've closed them out. There's a whole list of them here. But I've been trying to get on my game and get some things cleared up. So with that, let's dive into some of these changes. The first thing that I want to show is the chat changes. So within the chat, I changed a couple little things with regard to either using the username or the character name. This was a request from a while ago, and it makes sense. So I already took the liberty of taking our Project 6 and updating it with all the new game resources. So if you're not familiar with that, I would highly suggest watching my tutorial on how to install everything. But I went into my MV Online system, I cloned this to my hard drive. I went to the game resources, the JS plugins, and I took everything that is brand new here and put it over in here. Okay? So everything is already updated for me. I'm not going to show that on screen, but you can assume that I just did that. Okay. With that said, chat. So if we come into our chat system here, the biggest thing that I changed right here is chat by username or character name. Username is 0, character name is 1. So if we change this to 1 real quick, I believe I already have it enabled on the server. We're going to find out here. So if I come in here, and what is it? F5? No, it's not F5. Whoops. F6. No, F1. There we go. Whew. Alright, so if I start typing in test, I think I changed it to character name. Harold Test. Cool. I forgot I changed it to this color. Holy good God, this is bright. I forgot I changed it to this. So Harold Test. So if we come out of here and we change our formation, we turn it to Therese Sharon. I don't know what her actual name is, and we start typing things in, it now turns to her name. So the basic concept of this is it turns into your party leader's name. You can name your character whatever you want. It shows up in the chat as your character. To pair with this, I also that was the biggest change to chat, but I also did a very similar thing to network players, if you noticed. If you noticed, my name was kind of popping up and disappearing, and I'll go over why that was happening. But network players, you can also see names above their heads now. So if we come into network players, really quick, the show name above players is true. The only caveat to this, and this is why I said the plugins, making sure all of them are here, I added this nasty text pop events.js. This is a plugin I made a while ago. I mean, like when MV first came out. It's one of the very few scripts that I ported over from VXAce, and I used it for specifically this. So I brought it back to life, so to speak, and kind of revamped it a little bit to make use for online network players. So this is required in order for you to show names above players' heads. Okay, so in order for this to be true and to actually see the players' names above the head, you need the nasty text pop over events. Okay, and it doesn't matter where you place it. Not chat. Pardon. All right, so network players. The only thing that's different here is show user, obviously, you know, show username or character name over player's head, true. Show username or character name, so 0 for your username, which is what you use to log in, or 1 for character name, which is your party leader name. Okay, so we'll just put it to 1 for now, because we already have the chat set to 1 for a character. And these player text options and net player text options. This is in correspondence, and you can read it here. This refers to the number in nasty text pop events for text options. So what in the world does that mean? All right, so let's pop into Nell text pop options. you can read all the things that you can do with this plugin. There's quite a number of things you can do with this. It's really robust. You can add things above players' heads really quick, or keep it really long, or there's all sorts of fading options and outline colors and font sizes and different fonts, and you can go nuts. For our purposes, the biggest thing I want you to worry about is whatever you choose. So we chose option 1 and option 2. 1 for, I believe, the player, and then 2 for the net player. Let me just double check that. So network player events, 1 for the player, 2 for net player. Okay, and you can change this to whatever you feel like. I'm just going to keep it 1 and 2, just so we can mess with 1 and 2. The first thing that you would want to change is this time. So the time before text disappears, set 0 for eternal. So we're just going to set our 2 to 0, which is why our it was kind of like showing up real quick on the screen and then kind of disappearing, is because of that. The other thing that I am going to do, just so we can see what's going on, I'm going to change the text color. So I'm going to change it to something funky here, if I can type correctly. There, that should make things different. And you want to know what? Let's make the font sizes ridiculous. So let's make it 36. Let's make this, I don't know, 40. Make it pretty big. I mean, you can change the outline color, the size of the outline, and all that good stuff. All right, so now that we got that all in, let's save. I already have this popped up, so let's refresh real quick. Let's sign in. And we see Harold, and we see this Harold, and we see what's going on over here. All right, so this is how it works. So formation, let's just change out for Marcia. So we see Marcia, we see Harold, and all is good and gravy in the world. Yeah, this is pretty much it. It shows names above the head, and we chose, for sake of argument, the character name. So you can do everything by character name. Then you can bring up a chat. You can say, hey. We can bring up the chat over here. And by the way, I love these colors. Maybe I'll just do this. Yo. So, I think this gives, the basic of basic functionality for both chat and just seeing other players on the map. It was one of the things that I really wish I could have fully implemented in my own project for the IGMC. So this was something that was on the top of the list to just get done. So I hope you enjoyed that part of it. Next on my list of things that I wanted to show you is password reset logic. So if we come into the main screen here, something I added right down here is this forgot password button. So I made an account with Z. You wanna know what? I am not gonna do Z. How do I want to do this? How do I want to do this? Let's see if I can register my own account. So let's try. Let's do this, and let's make it just a super awesome password of Nell, because I'm gonna forget it anyway. Sorry about that. I just had a nice little run around. Okay, so Nelderson Gaming. Let's submit that. Check your email for the activation link. If we come here, activation, cool. All right, so what did I name myself? Neld. And it was this that I chose. Okay, so I'm in. All right, so I made my account. Now let's say I forget my account. So I know it's Neld, and I don't know my password. I can't remember it. I have no idea what's going on. All right, I can hit this forgot password, and the first thing it says is enter my email. So once again, in order for this to work, your system needs to be up and running, so you need to configure Node Mailer and have that all set up. But if you do that and you throw in your email address that you used to sign up with, so for this I did nelsongaming@gmail.com, check email for temporary password. Now, I will say this. If you happen to remember your password, so let's say I remember my password right now, and I'm just like, I remember it. Great. You don't really have to worry about the temporary password. The temporary password's almost a completely separate, at a security level, it's almost completely separate. The token lasts by default for an hour, and I'll show you where to change that. But the temporary password lasts for an hour, and it will only allow you the reset if you have the temporary password, if that makes sense. All right, so we're gonna go through that right now. So if we go back to my email, it's like, hey Neld, your temporary password is 6F44. So if I come in here and go Neld 6F44 and I hit enter, it's gonna come up with this password reset screen. It's gonna force me to create a new password and confirm it. So if I type in whatever and don't confirm, you must confirm your password. And if I type in something different, passwords do not match. So this is just kind of like a helper for your users to make sure that they put in the new password correctly twice. Okay, so I'm gonna change, password change successfully, and we're gonna put this in, we're gonna put that in, and we're in. And that's it with password reset and how it works on that end. How it works on the back end is a little bit different. There's a couple new things in config that I just want you to be aware of. So this mail from up here needs to be configured correctly. Obviously, this is my template. I have another local server running in the background that I'm not going to show you my config for because it has my username and password in here. However, this is how it's going to look on yours, and once you have it set up, there is a couple new fields that I just want you to be aware of. This enforce one user is a new option that I'm going to go over in a little bit. This is the next thing that we're going to go over. But lost password complexity, which is 2 right now. So this is not technically, how do I want to explain this? So this lost complexity of 2 is actually, what's the best way to explain this? This lost password complexity, even though it's 2, you saw me have to put in 4 digits. So it's actually hex converted character codes. So the complexity is double the characters. So if I had a lost password complexity of 3, it would give me 6 hex code characters to put in, you know, and so on and so forth. So whatever this number is, it's times 2 of hexadecimal numbers. Okay, I know that might not make a lot of sense, but if you're not sure, just keep it at 2 for now. And if you want to make it more complex, just put up the number. That's just the easiest way to explain it. Okay, and this temporary password expires, and right now it's in milliseconds. So the password expires in 1 hour. So obviously, if you want to change this, change it to 15 minutes or half an hour or whatever. Just allow for time, you know, for the email to get there and for people to, you know, check their emails and that kind of thing. Okay, because they can always hit the forgot password button again and just send another password to themselves. Okay, and yeah, that's it with the config file, and that's it with really the password reset logic. If anybody wants to know anything more about like the deep security levels, I did take into account, you know, somebody trying to get into like that confirm password screen. I did a little bit on the back end with making sure, validating that it's the lost password, that the lost password has to be passed back in order before you get to that password screen, as well as during that password reset, you still need to pass off that that temporary password encrypted. So there's multiple levels of security here, so somebody can't just come into your game and just try to brute force people's passwords with their emails. Okay, so I did keep a little bit into that account. If anyone wants any more information on that, I'll detail it out a little bit more. I mean, the code's open source. I mean, you can see it. So if anyone has any questions on that, they can contact me. With that said, let's get into this enforce one user, because this requires a little bit more handling on your end. All right, so I enabled one user on my own personal, on my other server that you just can't see because I don't want you looking at my config file. So I enabled it, I restarted my server, so we're gonna actually come in here, and we're gonna try to sign in to somebody else's project. And this is where it's gonna get kind of weird, because by default, it's not really gonna do much. Okay, you're like, well, what's going on? I can get in, this guy's in, so clearly we're connected still. Actually, no, you're not. So if I bring up, there we go, okay. If I bring up the console, you can actually see that I was authenticated and disconnected pretty quickly. So we're gonna reload this. I'm gonna show you live what's happening, and then I'm gonna show you how to handle it. Okay, so if we connect, just to show you how this does work, so I authenticate with Z, and I'm gonna authenticate with Y over here. Authenticated, great, right? So Z is still signed in. I'm going to try and sign in as Z again. And socket disconnected, socket disconnected. So the way that this works is enforce one user is going to disconnect everyone who is signed in on that user who tries to sign in again. This is the cleanest approach when it comes to dealing with multiple people trying to sign in at once. I threw around the idea of making like a flag in the database where, you know, you're logged in versus not logged in, and when you disconnect from the socket, it releases the flag, but there were issues with it, and it never worked exactly the way that I wanted to. Disconnecting everyone all at once is the most, it's the safest method in terms of keeping continuity in your game, okay? You can build things around this that, let's say your first player, you want to keep in the game, and anyone who subsequently connects, you want them to kick out, and you're just like, no, absolutely not, you can't come in. There's a way to do that, and I will show you how to do that actually right now. So let's reload these real quick. And I'm actually going to go into this a little bit. So this enforce one user is actually handled now in online login core. So right here we have our normal force login on startup and socket.io connection to true. This is what's new here. The switch on first shutdown and switch on second shutdown. Original user that is logged in will have this switch flipped when another user logs in, and then the second shutdown is second user that is logged in will have this switch flipped. So this is how we're going to handle this. So when this, I think the best way to show this is to just make a couple common events. So we're going to make a couple common events. We're going to do auto run, and we're going to do switch 1 and switch 2, which is what I had it set to. Okay, and we're going to just show a text, and switch 1 was the first player. Player to sign. Here, let's do it this way. But I'm the first player. Okay, and then the second one. So let's also name this just for consistency. So this is second player. Okay, and we're gonna also set this to an auto run, and we're gonna set this to switch 2. Ooh, switch 2. There we go. We're gonna say, I'm new, I want to join. Okay, so if we save that, let's reload these guys. Okay, and if we come in here, and we try to come in here, you'll notice, but I'm the first player, and I'm new, I want to join. So, and because I set it to auto run and I did not flip the switch off, it'll just keep them in this loop forever. But this is how you would now handle if you want them to reset, if you want them to just go ahead and connect again, so you can run the same socket.io connect and just reconnect them. This is made for, I didn't know if you want to, you know, kick off the first player and only have the second player come in, or if you want to give the first player the option to let the second player join in. Like, there's all sorts of different ways that you can handle this. But I wanted to give you that option to handle it yourself. Different way of handling it. I just wanted to give an open-ended kind of answer. Let me show you how I would handle it in my game. At least if I was making something standard. Really quick. I am going to, we'll keep what they say here, but there's actually a nice little script, and I already have it copied, so I'm just going to paste it right here. This location.reload, I know it works with the Windows and Mac deploys. I do not know if it works with the Android and iOS deploys, but I will test that soon. This location.reload is pretty much the equivalent of hitting F5. It just reloads your game. So, all right, so I'm going to copy this and do it on the second player as well. So just to give you an idea of what's going to happen, okay, when we connect 2 players at the same time, the first window is going to come up with this and then reload, and the second player is going to come up with this and reload. So the good thing about this, if somebody's signing in with your account, you'll be notified of when they're signing into your account, and then you'll be kicked off the game, and they will be kicked off the game as well. So if we come in here, you know, we're playing along, we're doing our thing, and somebody else comes along, and it says, but I'm the first player, somebody's trying to come in, blah, 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 blah. You hit enter, and it reloads the game. And same thing, I'm new, I want to join, or, hey, there's already somebody logged in as you. Please stop. And it reloads. So that's how I would handle it. But you can handle it whichever way you want. This is a very open-ended thing. I wanted to keep it very open-ended, but I wanted you to understand that all this is doing when this enforce one user is the server technically disconnects the socket, which is what's going on right here. Okay, it forces both clients to disconnect. Period. And then you handle that through the login core. So you handle that with these 2 switches. So you can make these switches, you know, whatever you want, like switch 33, or it doesn't matter what switches you use. It's just how you apply those switches with like an event handler. So you can have a auto run event on everything, or what makes a lot more sense is definitely the call common event. So common event, auto run with the switch that you choose, and then whatever you want to do for the first player, whatever you want to do for the second player who joins, and there'll never be more than 2 players, just based off how the script works and how everything combines together. You know, obviously you can turn this off completely, which it is off by default. So in the config, this enforce one user is false by default, which means that you can log in multiple times as Nelderson or as whoever, and it doesn't matter. You can play on 2 screens at once if you really want to right now. But you can set this option to true, enforce it, and, you know, handle the requests as you see fit. So yeah, that's pretty much it. We have a few little things that we've upgraded here. There's still a few more things that I want to work on. I also want to dive back into the development series and start getting into socket modules. All right, with that said, later game makers.